And it's a simple design that you want to use on these styrofoam plates that we're using, and then get them used to using a braille. The simpler paint. What we set up with is these plates is what they use as their printing form. What is not in these directions, a lot of these has a real shiny surface, and so we'll have polish remover to rub on the bottom to help take that shiny off so the paint sticks to it a little more when you roll the braiders on. And that's something when you have a helper, when you're setting up, have your helper clean the plates off. That way, because you get the kids doing that. You get into your time. And then, let's see, so we use the styrofoam plates, the braiders. These are our inking plates, which we just put the paint in, as you can see on the table. And then we have construction paper that we use for paints and for making the prints. And then the examples, we use these examples to show the kids. And these usually, I would, put up somewhere so they can see. And one of the things you want to talk about with them is making it as simple as possible. A lot of these are very, very complicated, but if you get too many lines, you lose a bit of it. So this is kind of hard to see what that is. You have to work hard, and these are adults, and so with children, they're going to you want to keep them more simple. So you might want to think about that when you're showing which ones of these to the kids.
Show the simpler ones.
Simpler ones, yeah. Like this one is in there. This is kind of cute. Yeah, yeah. Come on, no. This is a simple one here. And then this one says "Got Milk" on it, and that's another thing we talk about. Writing backwards in here, and we'll go over that too. But so we'll just use these as, you'll show these samples to them, type of thing. And then this is like a sample of what you can do with them once they're finished. You can make a card. And then here's another one where you do just paper. But that's not, we use these little papers, but let's see. So let's get you with that. Let me give you a... There it is. Okay, so what the first part of the lesson is, you talk about the procedures of printing on the different types. There's the relief printing where you talk about, this is all in your handouts too, the relief printing where it's your thumbprint, where you get the same print every time. It's the raised bumps on your hands that make the print on your paper. So that's called relief printing, and that's one form. And then it goes into more detail about it. You can read about it and kind of pick up what makes sense for you to explain, how it's easier for you to explain how it works. And then intaglio printing is the opposite, where it's the grooves that make the print make. And this is more, well, I was going to say it's more of what we're doing, but it's really not. It's the lines. Yeah. So it's the exact opposite of fingerprinting and relief. So it's the difference between the two. And then there's the surface or planographic printing, which is the writing. So, and it's like writing in the mirror. And so if someone wants to write something, encourage them to write it on a piece of paper first and practice it first, because once you start carving and mess up, that's it. And some words are easy, like mom and things like that. Those will be easy words, but other words, if they want to get some more detail, that's going to be, you'll have to really think about it. And then we talked about, we're doing relief printing. And going back to doing a simple line, it's going to be much easier. When you get too complicated, a lot of times the lines will form, flow together when you roll it, and so you want to make sure it's as simple as possible. And we'll start out with one, and we encourage just doing one, but some kids are faster and want to do more, so that's okay too. But just be careful with craziness, because it's very messy cleanup. These braiders all get filled, and you've got these plates that are filled with paints. And
try not to let them do too many, so I don't have to go buy more plates.
Right. So you've got to kind of, and then what you can do with the kids that are really fast too, you can have them start helping you clean up too.
They love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, helping their neighbor.
Right, yeah. Yeah, some kids like that, and then some kids like cleaning up
Clean up.
stuff. So, and it is a big project for cleaning up, so it's really fun to have helpers with this one because, yeah, and some of the classrooms, I think most of them do, but some of the classrooms don't have sinks, so, so it's like something to take into the kitchen or something, or bathroom and do it. So the first process is to have them think about a design, and it's called incising the design. And with a pencil point, you slowly press into the foam plate, moving your pencil in a smooth, continuous line. And you want to fill the space of the design here. So, and you're not going to want to be lifting up boring into the heart. Think of it at the moment. And you can do dots and things of that sort. This is the hard part about me.
So make a plan about what
Make a
you're going to
plan, yeah.
demonstrate.
Yeah. Oops. And that's you saw it just kind of whoops off there. That's going to happen too. And they don't need to go through. If it goes through, it's okay. But you don't want to encourage it because that gets messy too. Because the paint will go through. So you just draw a design. You guys can go ahead and do that if you want to. Follow along. Now show me, we can make kind of different types of designs, like the dots you can just press. And make dots, because those will make dots on them.
Hold on, I'll give you one. Can we have one more plate?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I gave you one.
No, that's okay. I'm already present.
You guys kind of draw a design, and I would show them first, and then have them draw their design after you do an example for them, so that we can figure out what we can have them think about what you want your design is going to be. And you set up the tables with the paints and the brayers. You can do it different ways. You can set it up in the back and they can pick. That takes more time to do that. Or you can just set a variety of colors on the tables that they can share, which is probably better. And sometimes it's more fun to let them pick the colors of the paper that you have. And then have them think about also contrasting colors when they pick their color, their little sheet that they're going to work on. And you can let them pick a couple. Think about using contrasting colors, so they've got to think about that when they're going to use their paint. Make it creative with 2 different colors. Very good, class. So at this point where they're drawing, you can go around and help them. You can tell them if they're getting too detailed maybe, or be careful about poking holes, or how to fix things that they don't necessarily want to do. Oops.
Do they put the name on the?
Not on the plate, on the actual paper we use.
Oh.
We do what we make the prints on. So now we can look at the color. A couple of things.
You're all so quiet.
I know.
We know third graders would never be so quiet.
Do you want us to do that again?
You can, yeah. It's kind of nice to see the contrast, the different colors and how it looks. The trick is if when they want to do, which color do you want? They'll be very specific as to what colors they want.
Oh.
I'm in third grade.
I was gonna do hearts. I thought that was
My heart's still back in third
right
grade.
before Valentine's
Yeah.
Day. It keeps you making.
So the thing is, the trick is too, is when they pick their colors to paint with, you're going to want to try to get them to stick as close to that, because in order to do another, actually you could switch the brayers, but you're going to have to wash your plate if you do a different color. So there's washing up in between if they want to use a different color.
So that's even with like this?
Well, no, that they could do, but like say for instance, if you do one in blue and then you want to do one in a green,
Okay.
and
You
so
have to wash their plate.
so yeah, you have to wash your plate. So
Which
that
can be messy.
right, and then it gets wet and sometimes you
Doesn't
don't
work
dry.
as well.
Well, you don't dry it as well. I did it a couple colors at home just to try and see what it felt like, because I haven't done this in a while, and it's fine. It wipes up fine, but it is. You just have to kind of watch it, because it gets out of control once you start getting a lot of kids doing that type of thing. So then the next thing we do is you show them how to use the brayer, and it's loading it up with the paint. And it's important not to be dripping wet, but these load up pretty easily. And then you rub on the back of your paint. And then when you're doing it too, you've got to watch. I can see where some of the paint has gone into the holes. A lot of the times with the details, you'll find that gets filled in too, and that can be a challenge too. So then you place the paper on it, and then you say, give it a back rub. Rub it to get your design in. And this is where you'll talk about the contrasting colors and figuring out what you want. Like for instance, if you use yellow on yellow paper, it's not going to show up. So you want to talk about.
Do some kids like to do it the other way? Do you ever do it the other way, where you put the paper in
Actually,
and you
when
do
I
it this
first
way?
when I first started doing it, I did it the other way. When I practiced at home.
I suppose it just
It doesn't matter.
kids going like this.
Yeah. But when I said give it a back rub, when it describes that, that's what makes me
More
think of the
gentle.
back rub on the paper itself. So I thought I did it both ways, so then you can show. And you can see, some of the lines, how in the details get lost a little bit with that got filled in. That's why it's good to be simple.
Put it down right as I zoomed in. It's all right.
And then I'm just going to wipe this over here. But, so they can try like different colors of paper and stick with the same ink color. But this part's tricky with the ink too, because they'll want to really load it up so it's dripping wet. You don't need that. These really absorb the paint really well.
And if it gets too wet, I guess it would all go down in the little grooves, huh?
Yeah. I wanted to see what you were talking about.
Yeah, I just wondered because it seems like there's bends and.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, someone I pushed too hard. Yeah.
It might break it.
I just didn't know what your experience was with.
It's been a while since I've done this lesson. I think we did it this way. But when I was doing it myself at home, that's the first thing I did.
And did it turn out?
It's just fine.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, hold it
Give
up.
us a try.
Oh,
3 times, perhaps reversing the design or overlapping it, and do a repeat design in different colors, reminding them to always clean off their plate before they use a new color. And then they can do different creative things if they want, creating a border on the edge if they want, in a different type of a way. So that's an option. They can use different color. And also another ways to do this too is they can fold. Now with this size paper, you can't really do it, but if you have larger size papers, you can fold it in half and make a card as opposed to applying this directly to a card.
I'll probably throw some larger paper in there too. Just for those fast students that get done and need something else to do. I'll try to put some bigger paper in there so you
they
can
fold it and
make a
put it
collage or
yeah,
something.
Or they can do you know,
Yeah.
something, the same design but just different colors. And that's pretty much it.
So is there anything important to know about cleanup?
Do they save all these gray
Yes.
trays?
Yeah, we resave
So we
some.
should wash those out and put them
Yeah.
back in there.
So, and the kids can keep their little print.
And one of the most important things is make sure they put their initials on it.
On the paper.
On the papers, yeah.
I'm sure they kind of copy each other.
Yeah, that's one of the things when you're finishing up, I usually go make sure you got their name on it.
Yeah, and in 5th grade, I'm still saying, when you turn your homework, make sure you have your name on it. So, it's not just an art. Well, that just looks fun.
And the teacher will provide a space where you lay them out to dry. And they dry pretty quickly.
Well, that doesn't make any difference. I just didn't
Yeah,
think
see?
Wow, that's beautiful.
Oh, wow.
So we just have to remember to tell them to really make those
Make it
grooves.
nice and
I mean,
deep.
try
Yeah.
not to go all the way through, but make
Right.
it nice and deep.
Yeah,
and thick.
and it's not the end of the world if they go through. I mean, they can go through, but it just, the paint, if it makes it messy.
And I did find going over it the second time, it was easier. So maybe, do it once and then just go over it again.
Yeah.
And you're drawing.
Fun.
That students and teachers have done.
They're in a big yellow portfolio
Yeah.
case. Just make sure you grab
And
that.
there's also astronomy photographs, so you can show different types of constellations and things of that sort. So we set up with, the students get black paper. This is their main, this is what their real project's going to be on. And then these are the test ones that they can try different techniques with it.
Do they wait to get their main one till the end, or do they start off with it?
We start out with this one. The first technique we do is the sponge painting, and that's on this one. And then we set it aside, and then we go to this. So, but you might want to wait to maybe hand out the sponges or something until after you do your demonstration of how the sponge works. And you'll tell them at that time, too, this is the only time you use the sponge in this. So, let's see. When we set out the paint, it's made with the red, white, yellow, and blue paints. Only is the only colors that we use in this. And let's see, and the toothbrushes we use for splattering, so they're not stiff. They're not actually, it says stiff brushes in here, but this is actually what we use for the splattering. Not the fun one. Messy. Let's see what else.
And there is an apron for you in the box.
I was going to say.
Yeah. So you set up the print so we don't have to display. And then to just pass out a sponge, you can pass out the sponge or the paper first, either way. But I wouldn't do both. Do the sponge or the paper. And then it says about a tablespoon of each color, just the palettes of the different colors. And then you talk to the class about what tempera paint is, that it's not, it's opaque, you cannot see through it. And when it dries, you can add another color to the top of it, and you can't see through it. So if you're painting over top of another color, that color that you paint over the top with is what's going to show. So we're going to do, there's going to be layers of paint on these. It's going to be, have a lot of depth because we're doing a constellation and starting out the name, so different types of things. So they need to keep that in mind when they're painting and using their tempera. And then we're going to teach them different techniques, how to use primary colors and white to mix to make different colors, lighter colors. And then you talk about the painting, the actual pictures of the constellations, talk about where they are, noting the colors, the spiral lines, the pinpoints where you can tell which are far away and which are close up, the California nebula that's shaped like California. And you can talk about, having a telescope at home, what do you see when you look out into the sky, type of thing. Should I have them think about what they're seeing when they're painting this picture and looking at the sky. And there's different, on our docent thing here, they talk about the nebula, which is the immense body of highly rarefied glass or dust, the galaxy, billions of systems, including stars, nebula, star clusters, globular clusters, interstellar matter that make up the universe. What a star is, comets.
None of that is
planets.
oh, there it
Okay.
It's
So,
okay.
Do you
Yes,
want
all
us
the
to talk about all those?
It's for our information only,
If we-
and if you're comfortable with it, and because we're going to be doing things like we're going to start out with the nebula effect. So if the kids want to talk about that, some of the kids will probably tell you more, you know, about constellations. So it's just kind of nice. Okay, you know. But it's not. It's more information for us, so we understand what we're showing them to try to create. And they're going to be learning. They're learning the solar system.
Yeah.
So they'll learn a lot. They'll know already a lot of this stuff. And where we start out is again on the big black paper, and it's the sponge where you create the misty nebula effect. So you get a sponge wet, and again I would have them wait till after. And you want to use, since this is kind of the background, you'll want to use the white or yellow to keep it light. And the way this shows to do it is you're going to do it up on the board so they can see. You creep it up. And they'll do like maybe one corner of the frame. You can do lighter. Each sponge is going to give a little different effect. So you'll have different. When you twist it a little bit, and the kids might want to stand up when they do it. And I can take this one off the.
you can get it all over the chalkboard. It's okay.
Like I just did.
Comes right off.
So it's a little heavy. I would normally think you want to go a little bit lighter. To go a little lighter, so lighter-handed. And they can do practice on paper towel or whatnot. They'll have paper towels also. You'll have to clean the tools off. And then kind of shape these on the paper, and you're just kind of balancing. The one edge you want to kind of go off the paper. The one I did earlier kind of flowed together more. It wasn't so separate. Bring it together by. As you can see, it's good to kind of practice and see what kind of effect. And the paints, how the paint is will make a difference. And you can tell the kids too, this is the only time they'll be using a sponge. So once that's done. Yeah, that's it.
And it's okay if yours isn't perfect because the kids it won't be
they won't,
perfect
yeah.
either. So
And then the next technique we show them on this paper, and then we'll put it aside to dry, is the splatter technique. And they love this one. It's messy. You've got to be careful and tell them to watch their neighbor when they're doing, even though these things wash. But if you're going to dip this paint is really thick, I would probably add a little water to it normally. So you get your brush wet.
yeah, take that off.
And this, you hold it down towards the paper. I'm not going to show it, but something you have to. You showed it, and a lot of times I want to stand because I think you can get a better feel for it. And then you take your finger, like your sink or your mirror lights after the kids brush their teeth.
See, that's daily at my house.
So, and you can spread it all over. You can use just a side of the paper. You can do it heavier in a spot.
I can see that pointing downward would be very important.
Yes, yeah. You're going to see it everywhere, but it wipes up easy. So that's what they're going to do first. So if you guys want to do that.
And they don't mix yellow and white. They choose one and stick with the sponge and the toothbrush.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. With like especially the sponge, you're just going to do one color, either yellow or white. And I did the.
And same with the toothbrush.
Yeah,
They take
just
yellow
to
for
keep
the
it-
sponge, keep the yellow with the toothbrush.
They could do.
Mix.
They could do. They could do yellow too, but
Oh.
you'll get a better contrast. You're going to get because they're different. They're different constellations, so
Right.
you're going to want.
So the toothbrush do both colors.
Well, no,
I
she
do
did,
like
I did
just
the
didn't know.
toothbrush with white and the sponge with yellow.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
notice. I can't tell
Oh,
from
yeah.
here that it's white.
Yeah, I just did, you
Sorry.
can do the same, but I think it's better if you do like the
Different.
contrast, because then it tells that it's a different type of constellation.
Storm,
that you're looking
yeah.
at,
Okay.
So, go ahead and try that, have them try it, and you squeeze most of the water out of the sponge before you do it, because you'll get it gets too wet. And then you can just kind of twist it, and they say bring it up off the page.
Do you want?
Oh,
Yeah,
I just had them in my hand.
some of these,
Okay.
some of these
I'll
are
walk
really,
it
some of the
around.
paints are really thick. Kids set those aside to dry, and you can put them on the ground behind you or just away. And then we're going to practice some other strokes. And again, you'll best probably want to demonstrate it first and then let them try. You guys can go along if you want to.
Yeah, let's do that.
Go ahead and try. So it doesn't matter which paper you get, black or white. The first brush stroke that we're going to talk about is a point, making little points, pinpoints. That's what it's called. And this is where paper towels come in handy too, because you got to remind the kids to wipe their brush with the paper towel after each time they change
Hug
the paint.
their brush.
The brush, yeah. And I throughout the whole lesson I keep saying that. Now remember, because their water's going to get muddy, and of course they're going to want it changed. And I'll get muddy anyway, but it'll help you a lot if you just remind them to clean their brush first. So pinpoint, I'm going to get a different brush. Pinpoint, they can use either the end of their brush or the point. In practicing with this earlier, these are a little bit thicker, so the pinpoints are going to be larger. So you just got to take that in consideration. Doesn't matter what color you use for these practices, they can use whatever they want. But just not white on white. So what you'll do is you'll do the spirals. You'll do little dots that go in a spiral type of thing. And you can experiment with it. And each brush is going to come out different. Every brush is a little bit different, so it's going to be what it looks like is going to be different. But you could also use the end of your brush too and do the same type of. And it's a little more controlled with the end of the brush. So just a pen. How you want to show it. Again, you see, I'm wiping my brush. Where goes another part? So you can try different. The lesson shows a spiral where you're going out and then it tails off, and then the other one just kind of a line that goes along. And you do loop-de-loo using.
Oh, hold your paper up. I lost you. There you are. Beautiful. Thank you.
And then the next is a spiral with fat and thin lines. And the fat and thin lines you get from applying more pressure on your brush. Let me use red for this. And these are spirals. Let's see, and you move by moving your arm, not so much your wrist. You're gonna get a better flow of it. It's kind of hard to do. And you can control. Again, each brush is going to respond differently. And that's more fatter, or you can make real fat. I'm going too close there, which you can kind of see. Different types of control you can get. And again, your brush tips, everyone's going to be different, so you're going to get different effects. So they're not going to get exactly what you get. Their brushes look different. And again, what you would do is, for instance, I'd show the dotted spiral and then stop and let them practice. you go to this spiral. Show them this spiral and then stop and let them practice. And then some of the techniques they'll be using and some that's the so-so, and that's when they get to, when they do their project, they get to use what, you know, what they like. Clean your brush off again. And then the next technique is a roll brush. 2 colors on the brush. So you load the brush with one color and then you tip it with another. And this one is a little bit tricky. I have a little bit of trouble with this one. Again, it depends on your brush. So I'm going to load it with red. And I'm going to tip it in blue because it's a little bit thicker. And you're going to get a little bit in there, but that's okay. And this is, you lay the bristles flat and you roll the brush.
That was hard.
It's hard standing up, and it does. You'll get the middle color will smudge a bit. Some, again, some brushes respond a lot better. Let's try again. And that's
you want it sort of
you want
floppy?
you want to load it really full, and then even your tip, you're going to want to get a lot on there. It's easier to do for me flat as opposed to, but it's a hard one.
And they've got to go in a circle?
Yeah. They roll the brush around, getting all the paint off of each side.
That is tricky.
I think it's
No,
better.
you have to roll
Yeah,
it.
because you want to get the paint off the brush, so you're using the brush. And they're kind of messy, blobby things, but they're kind of cool.
It's like a nebula.
Yes. And again, remind them to wipe their.
Before they clean them up.
That's right. And then this is most of the kids' favorite one. It's called the Pull Out and Dry Brush and Exploding Star.
Well, there, now I kind of like it.
I'm going to pause for just a
Okay.
second. Yep.
Okay. So the next one is the Pull Out, Dry Brush and Exploding Star. So what you do is paint a glob of one color. This is one of the favorite ones. I'm going to go with red again just because there's a lot of
I
it.
should put my other one in.
So glob.
Just use other colors.
So you're just using a big glob in the middle there.
If you could use up the other paints for me, I would love you tremendously. So you have a big glob of red or
Right.
whatever color.
And then you wipe your brush and clean it very well. And then you get another color and paint a circle around it. So you do a circle around that blob with your color. And this is not going to show up very well, I just realized, because of the black paper and the blue. And another thing you talk about with this is you can add like white to that to change that color to make it not so, so it'll show up better on the black paper. And you're using your blue on black, and the red doesn't show up as well, so I might just add a little bit of white to that to make it show up a little bit more. And making the color lighter, so it'll show up better on the paper. And you clean your brush off really well. And you want to get it clean and dry. One of those kids use a lot of paper towels. And then it's the pull out, and the brush is dry. And you just pull and lift up at the end. Kids love this one. And lift up your hand as you go out. And the more paint you use, the better. I didn't quite use enough.
I didn't use enough at all.
I thought I did, but now I'm looking at it.
Good.
So that's one of the favorite ones that everybody likes. And I didn't do a very good job with the blue on the black. I should have liked my blue more, but that's where you talk to them about adding the white to it. to lighten the color so that it'll show up on the black, because our board is black and the color, we're using blue, so. And again, you talk about what secondary color you get out of this, mixing those.
Can I put the white in the blob in the middle?
Mm-hmm. Lighten it. Yeah, every brush responds differently, so you're going to get different
It's better
effects.
when it's really,
Wet,
the brush
yeah.
is really dry, but the paint
It's wet, yeah.
because then it kind of brushes.
Yeah, you'll get that feathery look to it.
Well, I don't know if that's my favorite technique, but.
The kids actually love it, that one.
Oh, it looks different on black.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to be doing it on the black different. You want to have them think about that when they're doing theirs. They might want to use like the yellow and maybe red or something. And the last,
That would make fireball.
yeah. That's what.
That's what my son would do.
Yeah. Ooh. So when you're probably showing it, that would be a good one too. And the last one is the comet. And you load the brush in red. And then we tip it in yellow. And the thicker the paint, the more difficult it is to do. So we've got the yellows pretty runny and the red is a little bit thicker here. So we'll see how that comes out. But you press your brush against the paper, making them spread out. So you get kind of a ball of the comet, and then you just kind of swoop. I lost my paint there. You want to try it and then make it curve towards the end.
That's cool.
So with the exploding star, you can see that would be a nice contrast. So you want to, my brush stayed thick throughout. You kind of want to maybe lift up a little bit at the end so it thins out. And kind of curl it so it looks like it's.
Go ahead.
A lot of this is easier to do standing up, I think, especially for the kids too. So I encourage them because you get a better feel for it. We can use the.
This is really hard for me, looking at all these splatters I've made on the desk.
I know, I'm not cleaning them up.
Please leave
Doesn't bother me.
them.
And once they've practiced these techniques, you talk about lightening the color, talking again about how using the blue on the paper doesn't show up very well on black. Blue and red don't show up very well on black paper. So you maybe add a little bit of white to it to make it a lighter color so it contrasts more.
So would they dip their brush in white at the end after they loaded up their brush with all the black?
You can, or you could actually even mix it in a palette. What we've done before is mix them all on one palette, and you can take a corner of it and mix it. So you can take a bit of the corner of your tray and maybe add some white to it too. I did it on my paper just because once I got on there I realized it, and so that works too.
So spread it
Yeah.
after dropping on.
Yeah. After I put on the paper when I did my circles. It's easier to do that when we're dealing with blobs of paint as opposed to once you've actually done a stroke. And at this point is generally when they take a break.
This has been a long time for a third grader.
Yeah.
And then they come back.
And then they come back, and then you again go over the Van Gogh Starry Night, the painting. It's a painting of a brilliant night sky. Talk about whether it looks real or imagined. Where does your eye go first? You're talking about focal point on the paper because that's what you're going to want them to think about that. There's a large yellow moon on there that they go to. And what kind of lines has Van Gogh used to carry his eye around the paper? He does these swirling lines, and that kind of draws your eye around the paper, so you talk about that. And then it doesn't necessarily look like a typical night sky. He's used his imagination and made it look different. the way he's used his techniques, and we want to talk about using your imagination. And talk about movies that the kids are familiar with, the Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, the space movies, Lost in Space, which I don't know if I want to know about. E.T., Star Trek, that type of thing, and think about how that looked in the sky, you know, when you're, especially at Star Wars, when you do that warp speed, shoot off, how that looks, and using that. And so then you go back to your paper and start creating these things. Think about what your focal, have them think about how they want to lay it out, where your focal point's going to be, where it draws your eye. So that may be a bursting star, is what you're going to see there, and where it's going to be placed on here. Then just using the techniques that we use. That way, you start with our favorite ones and try some different ones. So I don't know how you samples to show you, but the samples they're fabulous. They're really.
So my bad.
No.
I had like 12 art dozen buckets and I was so confused, so.
It just, it'll help them see it come together in a picture. But it's pretty neat when you apply these techniques to that. It's really a neat effect. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
This is Magic Blossoms, the 3rd grade watercolor lesson.
Do I need a paper towel to hug my breath?
We do need a paper towel.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, so the only colors we really need to find, well, everything but black and brown. And we prime our paints by squeezing off good 4 or 5 drops of water without touching the brush to the paint, so we keep the brush clean. You have to really emphasize that to the kids before you even start. And say, watch me do this. And then you can have them get started. But a lot of them tend to just plunk the brush right down onto the paint. And before you know it, you've got dirty water.
Our nice new paint.
They're so pretty.
I like breaking them in.
Okay, so we're done. Just put the brushes down. And we are going to be drawing blossoms and then exploring different ways of painting them. So the first thing we want to do is our first blossom we're going to put in one of the upper corners. It doesn't matter, either side. And we start by just doing little circles, which are going to be the center of our flower. And you can do 6 or 7 or however many you like. I would just emphasize that you hold your pen straight up and down as best you can. If you hold it at an angle, you're going to get a really fat line. And we are kind of aiming for thin lines here, and you'll see why later.
And it should be off to the side.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put it too close to the corner, otherwise, you know, a lot of your blossom will end up running off the page, which is okay. Artists will do that quite often, have their art running off the side of the page. But I just don't want it way up in the corner, so anywhere in that general area. Now to start petals, we just start at the center of our flower, push the pen up and away, and then just come back down to the center. That's all you do for a petal. Some of the kids kind of have a hard time with that. Just show them how simple it is, starting at the center, up and out, and if your petal runs off the edge of the paper, that's fine. It can be any shape you want. It can be very round, it can be very straight and jagged, and however many petals you want. I would just work on keeping them big. We don't want a lot of tiny detail with this lesson, just big and simple.
And not to overlap.
They can if they want. You can have one that's kind of behind another. That's okay too. flower. Okay. Now we're going to draw a stem. So watch me first, children, and then it's your turn. Okay, so I need to figure out if I've got a stem coming from the center of the flower behind it, where is it going to come out from behind that petal there? So I'm just guessing it's going to come out right about here. So I'm just going to draw a stem straight down. And then I'm going to draw the other side of the stem. And for variety, you can draw a dashed line instead of a solid line. And just do that by kind of lifting up the pen every so often. Okay, and then we also want to add a bud. And I think I'll do the stem for the bud first. And for a bud, you just sort of make kind of like a little tulip shape. And then have this little pointy part at the top, and that's a bud. And then we just continue adding more blossoms. You might add another blossom or two, keeping in mind that odd numbers of things are more pleasing to the eye than even numbers, so you might want 3 blossoms, or 5 might be a bit too many. But I think we need more than just one.
And do you want to start with the center first?
Yeah, again, start with the center. Those little, I like to call them little donuts.
I like donuts. Seventh, 3rd grade, that's what I would say. My grandma makes donuts.
Does she?
She makes donuts, yeah.
I did love that about primaries. They always had a story.
Uh-huh. And you can tell them how awful they are for you. Especially now that you know about trans fats. Oh my goodness.
They just look at you like, huh?
And that's a problem because...
Yeah. Should have let you give me a Krispy Kreme.
Their thumb is going to go in cavities. The dentist to drill on your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like,
And then I'm going to start adding leaves. So I just add another stem, the leaf. And again, your leaf can be any shape that you like. We have some examples of other leaves on the board that other people have drawn. You might come up with your own shape.
Now, is it important to not get too detailed?
Yes, and you'll want to emphasize that a couple of times, at least during the lessons. Keep your details simple, keep them large. You don't want a lot of little tiny details. And we'll find out later why that's so. Okay, so when you're done, it should look something like that. Everyone's going to look different. And when you're done, everybody caps their pen, sets it aside.
okay, keep going.
Okay, you keep working. There's a slow one in every bunch. Okay, so now this is where we get to find out what is so magical about our lesson. And then you you can ask them if they've ever gotten a piece of homework wet that maybe had been done in pen and what happens to the ink when it's gotten wet. And a few of them usually know. Runs, or another word for that is bleeds. And this is the part they really like. Maybe to watch you. We're going to paint our black lines with water.
I wondered why we're using water pens.
Yeah. And they can see it. You'll be working up at the blackboard. I tape my paper up on the blackboard when I work, but they can see it from where they're sitting. And they really get a kick out of that. Now, the thing about painting these lines, and we're going to go ahead and just paint this whole flower here, is the brush tends to pick up all that ink.
Do I have to
So
rinse my brush?
you periodically want to rinse, but before we rinse in the water, what do?
Ooh, I have to hug it.
We hug our brush to get all that ink out. And then go back. And they want to make sure that their brush is wet but not dripping wet. We don't want big puddles of water on the paper. But this is really fun to just watch that ink just really spread. I don't paint the dots in the center with water because they tend to just make one little black puddle. I just drop on paint later, and the paint alone will also cause it to bleed a little bit. But I think that usually works better if we do it that way. Now, the way the lesson reads is you go ahead and start adding color now. And we can try that. Sometimes with these markers, depending on the type of marker and the size of the marker, these are pretty fat. There's so much ink on the page. When you add the paint before that ink has really dried a little bit, you can get a lot of bleeding into the color. So we can try it both ways tonight and see what we like. So I'm just going to start adding color, and I think I'm going to go with red. And I'm just going to barely dip my brush into the paint because I want to start really light, and that may even be too much. We can always add color later. It's easier to add the color later.
So am I was just supposed to paint the flower leaves, not the stem.
Yeah, we're going to start with just the flowers and just one flower.
I did my hair.
And if you see, there's one example up here where they did not paint all the way to the black line. They just sort of added color to the petal without going all the way to the edge, and that might help keep the black where it should be. So this is actually working. I think it would be fine to just do it a blossom at a time, the way the lesson reads. Yeah. And to add interest, I'm going to go back and get more paint and maybe just darken it near the center a little bit and just kind of watch that run a little bit. But that way we don't have the same shade of red or whatever color you're using. Just adds a little interest. So then we would go around and paint each petal the same way. And then when you finish this blossom, you go on, clean your brush, and then go on with plain water to the next one and paint it the same way.
You can really see the difference when the paint is dried on some.
And some of the kids tend to not have enough water in their paints. You know, they should always have a little puddle there, whereas other kids tend to have too much water. So they might need reminders about that. They're getting a really dry, feathery look when they paint. It's because they're not using enough water.
Now, and these are magic just because they blend? Is that
Yeah,
magic
because the way
for it?
that ink bleeds, that's what's so magical. And the black, or it actually becomes gray when it bleeds, kind of blends in with your blossom a little bit.
Do you encourage them to stick with the same color?
No, they can try. In fact, we do have a few examples where they have blended these, red and yellow and orange together. You might want to talk about what colors look good together.
Do you ever have boys that don't want to make flowers?
That hasn't been a problem.
I've never had you.
I've never had it either. I just wondered if it had ever
No.
happened. I would assume they probably just want to do it so badly that they don't care.
And if you want your paint to kind of spread and bleed a little bit, you can always paint over what you've done with a little water to get it to blend a little more. If it's too dark in one area and you want it to kind of spread out. And I think I'm going to go ahead and add a little color to the middle. I'm going to try just dropping some yellow on the middle. See how that works. And I think if we were to just paint those with water, it would just become a little duck petal.
I started to, it does. It just turns white. There's some color to it.
Okay, since we've done blossoms, let's go ahead and try a stem. So I'll go ahead and paint my stem with water. Can you see that, Kirsten?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and I usually just go ahead and use the regular green. Just real quickly go down the entire length of it. But then for interest, maybe add a little yellow to it. I'll change the color. And a little more yellow. Or you can try using yellow, load your brush with yellow, tip it in blue. Okay, so that's what we have so far. And that's basically it. And then when they're done with the lesson, they just go ahead and sign their name on the bottom, like an artist would. And again, the main thing you really need to emphasize with this lesson is keep the details large and simple. Otherwise, they're going to be painting all day, and then they'll have a lot of blurry black lines.
Because if the lines are too close together, they just smear.
Yeah, they do. And then it's just, the black kind of overwhelms it.
And then is there any, so they just sign their name at the end?
And that's it. Very simple lesson, very fun.
Ready?
Yep.
This lesson is Native American or Sonoma County clay animals. And the lesson plan reads, the purpose is to discuss which animals are native to Sonoma County, to explore the medium of clay and become more aware of its characteristics, become more aware of animal shapes and their proportions, and to learn techniques of molding in 3 dimensions without adding on, and that's real crucial, without adding on in this lesson. Because adding on causes problems.
Is that where we pull?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you start out, we're using, just for this video, white clay, but you use redstone clay. There's directions on how to cut the clay. You're going to use it in blocks because it's easier for their hands to get around and work with. So in the front of the booklet that contains the instruction sheets shows you how to cut the clay, and that's real important for distributing it and getting it right. you start out the lesson talking about, have you worked with clay? Do you know where it comes from? Do you know what it's made of? That it's made with water like ourselves. And how, we need water in our bodies, and clay needs it also to stay soft and be able to be workable, get thirsty. And we make sculptures today. And we talk about sculptures and what they are and what they can be made of. They don't necessarily have to be made of clay, they're made of different things. Wood, glass, stone, marble. And then you segue into talking about features that we have in common with animals. And you can get the class to participate, talking about nose, mouth, hair. We have ears, legs, hands, feet. And they'll get into it, and it's kind of fun if it's some creative answers. And then we talk about the differences that they have, their shapes, the color, and how each one of those features makes us special. Certain types, like bunny has big long ears as opposed to we have small ears side of our head, hopefully. And
Hopefully.
beaks instead of noses, small ears.
Hope I have a nose instead of a beak.
Well, hopefully your ears are small instead of large like a bunny's.
That would be funny.
And then we'll go over the pictures of the animals that we have that are native to Sonoma County or America. And you can talk about different animals that are from Sonoma County, make a list on the board, discuss, have the kids raise their hands and talk about which animals are from Sonoma County. And we stay away from farm animals. A lot of those are imported from way back originally anyway, so we'll talk about things that are native to here, like prairie dog, the deer, foxes, whales, skunks, wildcats, sea otters, eagles, turkey vultures. And then you talk about the differences of the features between animals, how different their ears are. Some you can't see their ears, others, like the bunny rabbit, has the big ears. Things of that nature, how their noses are different, the beaks on the birds, and turtles, and birds have the beaks, stuff like that, and bunny's nose, and things of that note, and then tails, how their tails are different. Some have little short stubby tails, others have longer tails. Turtles' tails kind of little tiny skinny thing, and bunny's tails more round and fluffy. And then again, you want to talk about the texture of animals, the different textures of skin they have. Bunny's soft fur. An otter may have a little bit rougher fur. Turtles are kind of scaly with their hard top shell. Again, the frogs are scaly. Owls are feathers. So things that, and you can get the children involved in that, in the discussion of those things too. And then you want to get into thinking about the animal they want to make, and things that they'll need to include. For instance, the shape of their body, their neck, their head, the legs, whether they have legs or not, whether they have tails, do they have wings, do they have horns, and fins or ears. One of the things that's important with this lesson is not to get too involved with little tiny pieces, because they do break off. You'll see in some of the samples here that the parts of the critter falls off, and that kind of ruins their animal. So you want to encourage them not to get these little small pieces. And at this point, we're ready to start working, and you'll want to hand out the clay. We have mats to use, and I can use that. And so the part that you do is you show them how to roll or squeeze into a cylinder or elongated oval. And this clay that I'm working with right now is very soft, so it's easy. But the red clay is much harder, so they're going to have to spend more time working with it.
I got soft red clay,
Alright,
so it will be much easier for their little hands. And it's all fresh, so it's very soft and
Okay,
pliable.
so that shouldn't be an issue.
So that should help, or at least according to the lady at the clay store.
So, and that makes a difference because their hands have to warm up the clay a bit and get it, and it works. And one of the important things about working with clay is not overworking it, pulling pieces out and pushing it back in, because you create air pockets, and that's where the clay gets damaged in the firing process. You need to explain that to them. What happens is they all explode when it's being fired, which may sound cool, but it destroys your creature, and it will destroy everybody's around it also. So it's not very fun when you spend all this time working on something and have it blow up. So what you're going to want to do first is pull out the head. And think about what shape. Maybe I'm going to start pulling out the head towards the neck of the thing. And what type of shape you want to do. And I'm going to be doing, I'm thinking of this maybe a turtle. And you squeeze, but keep the neck thick enough to support the head. You don't want to get it too thin. That's real important. Think about this shape, and they can use water on their desk, or use that spray bottle just to give it some shape. You don't want to work it too much. If you give them too much water, they'll make mud type of things on it, but you don't want it to dry out when you're working with it. Like I'm going to use more water than usual with this because it's...
Mrs. Olney, what are you making? I want to know what that is.
To make an otter.
I just needed to know what that
Laying on
was.
its back.
So you've got the basic, I've got the basic shape of my head, what I want. So, and then to do the underside for the legs, you're going to use a tool and mark the lines off on the legs for the underside. So I'm going to come in, he's going to have 4 legs on this picture. You can do one standing up like this otter is shown here, where he's standing a little bit different, but mine's going to stand like a turtle. It doesn't stand on his hind legs. So I'm going to underscore for the feet, so it makes it easier for you to pull out the pieces. And again, you want to be careful and not make it too thin. You don't want it to break off, and it's also going to be able to support it. And think about the size of your beast. If you get long, spindly legs, it won't stand up. Your shape going. So this is while you're thinking of your animal, you're going to think about how it's standing or sitting. So mine's going to be standing like that. Kind of play with it and push and mold. There. And then I'm going to pull out, after you get your legs basically how you want them, then you pull out the shape of your animal. Pull out maybe the ears. This, of course, turtles don't have ears, so I'm not going to show you that, but I'm getting his shell, so I'm pulling out his shell, working with it, and it's a pulling and squeezing. They have kind of oval shells, so I'm thinking about that using, and I'm not folding the clay over when I pull it out, I'm just kind of pulling it, smoothing it. His head seems a little big, so you can move the head so it gives it. His head can be looking up, he's going to be looking down, you can think about that type of a thing. And you want to make sure and keep, if you are pulling out ears or a tail, you want to keep it thick so it doesn't peel off. And you can do different textures. I'm smoothing with my fingers. And as you get further along, we have tools you can use to make designs. Like I'm going to give him a kind of a crisscrossy design on his back. And I don't want to get the ends too thin for his little shell because I don't want pieces to break off.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute.
Little head. And if you do, like for instance, I might want to thin out his head a little bit, so I'm going to pinch off some clay and just kind of pull it off. Can't put it back on. Once it's off, that's it. And so you smooth it out. So make sure you want to keep it off.
I think that's the hard part for the kids, is they want to
Put it back on.
Put it back on.
But
Oh,
in
that
first
is-
grade, they weren't allowed to put it back on either,
Yeah.
so they've
Don't forget,
practiced.
yes. They have to remind them. And watch them closely, because I've had lessons that I've been more careful with them. Have things blown up and it's sad. Feel bad for them.
sad.
Yeah, because not only does it destroy theirs, it destroys whoever's around it. So, kind I got the basic shape of my turtle, and I can start adding details. And we have tools, sticks and toothpicks and textured popsicle sticks, and we have forks you can use for the texture of hair, for a critter that has hair, or you can use a toothpick to do that. You can use the straws, you can poke out eyes. For instance, just do a little eye there. Make it eye.
So you don't add rolls of eyes, you just...
No,
No
This
adding.
is no adding at all.
No adding, I think
Because
that's
that's where you,
the hardest.
yeah, and that's where you get air pockets, is by adding. So that's why we want to avoid that. So I'm making some eyes for him. Sometimes they'll come out, sometimes they stay in there. I'll take that one out. And you can work with the shape of your eye. Maybe that's too round for me, so I'm going to squeeze it a little bit so it's not so round. Heavy head. And I can add details. Now they do have little, small little nose, so I'm just going to pinch his nose a little bit to get a little shape. They don't have real defined noses. And I'm going to give them a little, just a mouth. I'm not going to go too deep, but deep enough to, this clay shrinks when it dries, and so you want to make sure your features are defined enough so that they don't get lost when they shrink. Pinch his nose a little better. And put his little holes in his nose holes are going to have an angle there. So everyone's going to be different. Sometimes you may start out thinking you're going to make one type of a animal, and it may end up being a little bit something different, but you want to make sure you're keeping in Sonoma County or Native American type of an animal. But it could change a little bit sometimes as you're working. So then I'm going to make
That's the cutest turtle.
grooves for his shell, adding my details. And remember, when you start cutting and making shapes, it's something that you can't make go away, so you have to keep that in mind. Now, I'm making deep grooves, so I'm not going to be able to, if I don't like that, I'm not going to be able to make those go away. So I'll create air pockets if I try to put it back in. And this clay has all been packed nicely, so all the air pockets are out of it now, so it'll fire nicely. I don't want to add any air pockets. And you just work with your details and clay. And if you decide you don't like it, you're going to have to try to work and make it the best you can, because you can't start over again, smush it back up and start over, because again, you're creating air pockets. So it's important to think about what you're going to do. Know that it's not going to be exactly perfect. It will look different, it's going to be unique, it's going to be your own interpretation. And think about ways you can make it better if you don't like it. And usually you'll do this, start showing them first before they start the lesson, so they can see what you're doing, and then they can try themselves. Otherwise they won't listen to you as they start creating. You'll lose them a little bit. So it's good to do this demonstration first. And then you're going to have to remind them constantly about when you pull pieces off, you can't put them back on. You can't fold your clay back over and start over. You have to get your basic shape and then start again. And they dry in the classroom for about 10 days.
Do I put a wet paper towel over them?
Yes, a wet paper towel so they don't dry too fast.
Do I do that? Is that for all the clay lessons?
And then they get fired after 10 days.
Think we can get Tony to fire? I'm scheming.
Tony will do you.
Will she?
But yeah, she's doing all of you with
Oh,
them.
fabulous. Then I won't have to ask her about
So
it.
then you let them try, and again you go over the key points of not, so pinching and pulling, it's not taking off and putting back on. And pretty much it. I think unless you have any questions.
Yay, thank you, Ralph.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Let me think.
You guys stop. Thank you!
brush, make sure you have their attention and really watching it carefully, because you'll see the kids doing it like this. Make sure the brush is pointing straight up and down. And I just want to barely touch the brush to the paper. I don't want the bristles to really bend at all. So straight up and down. And I'm just going to make a spiral starting from the center, going around and around and around. And this is a motion from the shoulder. I'm not moving just my hand. I'm moving my whole arm. And that'll give you a nice even spiral.
And we're using red.
We're using red. Do a broken spiral. Same motion, but we're going to lift our brush up from the paper periodically as we create our spiral. So just starting from the middle. And this one's a little bit trickier.
My spiral looks like it ran into a wall.
Okay, now this one is called a triple stroke. Try to check the brush and make sure that you picked up. It's holding the brush this way before you even start, because they just don't get it. They'll see you holding the brush this way. Don't get to hold the brush with your hand over the top of the brush. It makes it easier to do the stroke. You can dip holding it the other way, but when we get ready to paint, then you transfer your hand over the top, because that way you can lay the brush flat on the paper. That's all you're going to do. And then left. And we're just going to do this all the way around in a circle, and this is called a stipple stroke.
So I turn the paper?
You can turn the paper. That makes it a little bit easier. They don't have to make this flower. That's what we've done up here in our example. And they've sort of done it in reverse. They've got the ends of the bristles pointing in, a bit more of a star shape. I've done the reverse where I've got the end of the bristles pointing out.
Tony, will you hold yours up so I can see that, please?
It's going to run, and there it is.
Beautiful.
And then you press that one and do it again. Yeah, it's a fun one. Tipping in red or loading with red. And I'm going to get less glue this time because I got too much glue. It's regular glue. I'm going to try to give you an example. Where they have the end of the bristles pointing in.
End of the bristles pointing in.
I used less glue that time too. That glue color.
That's just fun.
That is a fun one. And this one is fun too. I'm going to do a pull stroke. But we're going to use two colors. I need my brush, and I'm going to load with yellow. I'm going to tip in blue. And then I'm going to position my brush below my stipple strokes that I just did, can lay the brush down and just pull it right up to the flower. And you can see what happens to the yellow and blue. They're mixing to create green. So that's for the stem. So I'm going to come back down and do the same thing to add some leaves.
I got too much blue.
And which is okay. You can go back and clean your brush first. But you can go ahead and load your brush with yellow and pulling towards the flower. Pulling towards the flower. So if you think, you know, I've got too much blue in there, I'm going to go back and get some yellow. And then just kind of go over again and just add some yellow.
And am I lifting up as I go toward the end?
When you're making the leaves, yes.
Well, my flower stems are just ugly.
No.
That's okay, because there's no mistakes in art.
That's why we're practicing. Again, it takes very little blue. Same way when you're making purple, it takes very little blue.
Blue is a powerful color.
Now this is too yellow, and I can go right back to the blue and add more blue.
Doesn't it? Thank you.
I think I got too much blue.
Yeah,
But those are
really.
fun. And I try to encourage them to mix the yellow and blue when they're adding green to their bouquet, because it's just so much more interesting. You get so many different shades of green as opposed to the green out the box. It's just really straight, bright green. Okay, so now we're going to move back to our bouquet. And we're going to use the techniques that we've been practicing to turn these blobs into flowers.
Now, should this be dry or?
Yeah, it's fine. You can add a little water later if you want. You can try sprinkling. We can practice that and see what we think. I tend to just leave it. Sometimes they just add too much water and everything just runs together.
But it's okay if
Big
mine's a
mess.
little wet still?
If yours is still wet, that's fine.
Okay.
I would avoid the big puddles if you have
Yeah,
puddles.
no, I don't
would
have
kind of
them.
continue to let those dry a bit. If you really want to, you can take your paper towel and kind of blot any extra water off of your paper. That works too. Okay, so I've never actually guided them through this process as far as adding spirals, but sometimes they tend to not use those techniques very much. So you can try, okay, pick one blob on your bouquet and let's do a spiral on it. And I'll do it first, you know, for them. Maybe I'm going to add red to this big yellow one, and maybe it will turn orange. I know it's awfully dry, so it might not. But I'm going to turn this into a flower by doing a big spiral. So if we walk, oops, I couldn't mess that up. So you might try having them pick, you know, one of their blobs and do a spiral. And let's pick another one and do a broken spiral. Now these little guys, oops, I should start from back. These little ones might be better for a spiral. In fact, this one's, I just messed up, so I'm going to make it a purple flower.
And then the stippling, is that for adding more, like for adding green?
You can add
or?
little flowers maybe if you've got some big white sections that's not really addressed in the lesson. Why we practice that stroke. You can use it to make leaves, like a fern. But I would use it to make those little flowers. Let me try a broken spiral on one of these red ones. So if you can get them to practice with you, on their blocks, each of these strokes. They might be more inclined to continue using it. What else do we practice? The broken spiral, the simple strokes.
So you want to bring the red on the yellow, sticking to those primary.
You know, and I would remind them, you know, what if you decide to use blue on your yellow flower? What are you going to get? You might get green, and we don't really see green flowers in nature. They may choose to do something more abstract, which is fine. But think about what colors they may be creating, you know, when they mix colors. And again, with the blue flowers, I don't know if I would add yellow. Did she show? She did have a yellow, didn't she? But you see, yours didn't blend, so it's okay. Well, yes they do.
Yes, they do. And actually, there are green flowers.
There's orchids.
Yeah, they're waxy flower. I'm thinking of it. It's like a yellow and green streaky.
Now, I'm going to stop taping here in a second because we're all having fun painting, but is there anything else that we need to know?
Well, let me move on to the green. And I've always kind of had a problem with that area because how do you paint leaves? Now, we practiced that pull stroke in painting leaves, but if you want to eliminate all the white space...
Maybe that's where that blue and green stipple would be good for... I mean, blue and yellow stipple would be good for adding...
Right. You just have to do a lot of filling in with that, which I think for a second grader is going to be a little tedious. A lot of them just choose to fill in with, you know, solid green. But I was thinking, well, what if you painted the green in like this and then added those interesting stipple strokes over the top of the screen? At least that way you filled in all the white. So let me just try it. See, this is much quicker. And they do get a little tired. They pretty much are done with painting by the end of this lesson because you've taken them through a lot of practice. And sometimes some of them are just ready to stop. And it's hard to get them to continue and do all the strokes that you practice. But now that I've painted that, let me try adding some of these stipple strokes over the top. So yellow, get some blue, and putting my brush over the top. And paint this through.
Homeowners Association meeting?
So that adds some interest to it. So over that green.
So they're filling in with the green.
And maybe they can just
They could fill in also with those other strokes.
the other little flowers, the little
Stipple strokes.
They can make some of those little flowers, but they're also going to need to fill in with that green too. But to get them to do that stipple stroke or trying to pull and create leaves, they just won't show because you want to get rid of the white. But you see if I add a few over the other green, that does show up a little bit. You can see there's something different there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, this is the first time I've done this, so I'm totally experimenting here.
So then they set it aside to dry, and after you guys leave, they cut it out?
Up to the teacher, you know, next day or whenever she chooses to. They usually cut them out and then mount them on construction paper like that.
Perfect.
Don't always laminate it, but I think it looks nice.
And then is there any specific cleanup? Just make sure the brushes are clean,
yeah, make sure the brushes are clean
and please don't blot the paints with paper towels.
It just soaks up a lot of
Yeah,
paint.
because it just soaks up all the paint. So just kind of
Pour it out.
pour it out and just let it
Wipe
dry
off
for a
the
minute.
box.
Yeah. Anything else? Nope, fabulous. Okay, everybody off.
Okay.